While waiting for the next add-on from Caledonia Works, I figured I'd go further back in the developer's catalogue to look at an older add-on for a change. In the end, I settled on the London and North Eastern Railway G5 class 044 tank engine, one that I've been meaning to look at for a long time now. But first, a brief history on the G5, originally known as the North Eastern Railway O class. When Wilson Worsdale became locomotive superintendent of the NER, he switched the company's passenger tank engine policy from the A-class 242 tank, designed by his brother Thomas, to his own 044 design reminiscent of the bogie tank passenger class, or BTP for short. 110 examples of the O-class were built between 1894 and 1901, and compared to the A-class, later the LNER's F8, the O's had smaller driving wheels and higher fuel capacity. The G5 class was designed to run passenger trains on branch lines or in heavy suburban service, a job they carried out well for many years. Perhaps unsurprisingly, they spent most of their working lives in the northeast of England, and with that in mind, I can imagine that, if a G5 was in the railway series, she would have a Geordie accent, just like Sunshine from Tugs. The larger A8, V1 and V3 tank engines, not to mention the Tyneside electrics, no, not those ones, displaced the G5s from the more intensive suburban work, but they kept going primarily on branch lines into the British Railways era. Withdrawals of the class began in 1950, and really picked up following the arrival of diesel multiple units from 1955 onwards. By 1958, all of the G5s had gone, with none surviving into preservation. The good news is that there's an ongoing project to build a brand new member of the class, which will be numbered 1759. I will include a link to the new build's website in the description, for anyone who's curious. The G5 add-on was released back in December 2018, and all these years later, it is still available to buy on CW's website for £15, or around 34 New Zealand dollars. Personally, I reckon that's still reasonable value for money, considering the number of liveries that are included. The livery selection is as follows. North Eastern Railway Green, with an alternative variant that has a smokebox dart, North Eastern Photographic Grey, NER Royal Green, which I thought was called Saxony Green, LNER Lined Black with an ampersand, LNER Lined Black 1925 to 1939, LNER Wartime Black 1939 to 1945, LNER Post-War Black 1945 to 1948, BR Transitional Black with the Gill Sans font, BR Lined Black with the early crest, and BR Lined Black with the late crest. There is a photograph out there that shows G5 number 67340 fitted with extended water tanks, but unfortunately that modified variant wasn't included in the pack, although it is something I hope to see added if there is ever a remaster of the G5. Some of these locomotives were fitted with push-pull equipment in 1937, and although there's no push-pull fitted variant in the CW pack, you could still pretend to run a push-pull working in-game using any brake van that's got a passenger view camera looking back down the track and away from the train. What I'm saying is that you can go to that camera in the brake van and pretend that it's a cab car. Alternatively, you could use the auto coach that comes with CW's GWR 1400 pack, since this coach has a passenger view camera in the cab. Meanwhile, one aspect of the G5 in TS Classic that always stood out to me is the texturing. For comparison, I've brought in one of CW's newer northeastern locomotive models, namely the R-Class 440, later classified as D20 under the LNER. To be fair, I think the G5's texturing is still fine for its time, and I particularly like the weathering effects on the cab's rear wall. I don't know what Chris was using for his texturing back then, but these days, I'm pretty sure he's using a program called Substance Painter, although I'm happy to be corrected if I'm wrong. As for features on the G5, these include, but are not limited to, multiple cab camera views, an animated rod in the Westinghouse air pump, animated Stevenson valve gear inside the frames, custom/fully detailed cab interior, and the early version of Performance Mode, as this was before the low and max settings were added. The G5's feature list doesn't specify which locomotive, or locomotives, the sounds were recorded from, but it does say they were Northeasterners, so I'm guessing it was either the J21, J27, J72, or Q6. I realise that I could be completely wrong with all of those guesses. On a personal note, the only pre-grouping Northeastern engine that I've seen in person is one that hasn't steamed since 1925. This is the long boiler 060 at the National Railway Museum, and if you look closely at the running board above one of the buffers, you'll see something silly. Incidentally, the G5's whistle reminds me of a certain fictional 040 voiced by the late Britt Allcroft. These days, and following the Great Eastern Railway T26 class, which was released in April 2020, CW add-ons use a .exe installer file, while the earlier add-ons, such as the G5 for instance, use .rwp files. For those who don't understand the older setup, there is a README file included with the download that provides instructions on how to install this thing. As for what the G5 is like to drive, she's reasonably easy to the point where new players shouldn't have much trouble. She is best suited to short freight or passenger trains, and steams rather well when she's not working hard and the fire mass is between 700 and 800 pounds, to the point where the safety valves are often constantly blowing off, so if that annoys you, I would recommend setting a lower fire mass. I found that, once she's up to speed with a short train, she's happy with the reverser set at around 48 or 37% cutoff, with the regulator at 66%, although you'll need to adjust the cutoff and regulator depending on your train's length and weight, not to mention changes in the route gradient. During a test run, I found that she can reach at least 40.4 miles per hour on level track, and also found that she's fairly hungry and thirsty at those higher speeds. Her reverser is quite sensitive to keyboard inputs, more so than what I'm used to with newer CW engines, and even in sunny weather, the cab is quite dark. As the G5 doesn't have cab lighting effects, the best way to light up the cab is to open the firebox door. As for any suitable routes for these locomotives, there's the Weardale and Teesdale network as one example. And maybe the Stainmore route as well, since that's partially former Northeastern territory. and also the freeware Cornhill and Kelso route as well, but I'm not sure if the G5s ever ran in those areas. In any case, it's worth mentioning that, when you go to place a G5 on the track in the scenario editor, you won't find her in the Caledonia Works folder. Instead, she's in the Victorian Lad folder. And if I recall correctly, CW started using a different folder somewhere around 2019 or 2020. In closing, it has been the experience of all time revisiting the North Eastern Railway O or LNER G5 class, and I would still consider the add-on to be decent for its time. As mentioned, she is still available to buy if you want to try the engine for yourself, but personally speaking, I would recommend newer add-ons from CW if you're interested in the North Eastern Railway, or just want a small tank engine for branch line work. Historical accuracy be dashed. As for specific recommendations when it comes to tank engines of a similar size to the G5, I present the London and South Western Railway M7, North Eastern Railway A or LNER F8, Great Eastern Y65 or LNER F7, Caledonian Railway 1 class, and LSWR 415 class, better known as the Adams radial tank. It has certainly been interesting going down memory lane, so to speak, and seeing just how far CW products have come since 2018, when it comes to modelling, texturing and scripting, the lot. As alluded to earlier, I would be interested in picking up a remastered version of the G5 if that was ever made, but at the same time, I realise that what will be will be.